Hello, hello. We are live once again. I'm Sarah Olivieri, and I want to talk to you about pacing. So every week I come to you right after my live group coaching call with my thrivers, those amazing CEOs of nonprofit organizations. And not my ongoing thrivers so much, but my new thrivers and people who are soon to be thrivers are often thinking about feeling overwhelmed, that moment when you've got way too much going on, right? There are too many balls in the air and it's overwhelming and you're just getting things done as fast as you can. And it just seems like this relentless, almost never ending. It could be months and months and months and months before you're done dealing with it. Well, I want to talk to you if you are any kind of CEO or whatever role you play, but especially if you're a CEO of a nonprofit. And I want to talk to you about pacing. As the CEO, it's literally one of your jobs, or it should be one of your jobs. I want you to know it is your job. You can have it as your job if you want, to decide what the pace will be. So if it is your life and your work life that you're experiencing things going way too fast and too many things going on at once, you need to change it, right? So what do I mean by this? So you may have a project that you have made more complicated than it needs to be. For example, today we were talking about newsletter production, which was taking up a lot of time. And we got down to like, what do we really need to accomplish with this? All we really needed was a fundraising letter, which requires very little design and is very kind of easy to get out the door, especially once you have the writing done already. Another example of pacing is if somebody writes you an email about something seemingly urgent, right? Like, oh, we got to get on this thing fast, right? That's their pacing that they're writing to you with. And you get to choose the pacing. When do you respond? If you respond instantly, right? Imagine tennis, right? Somebody sends you the ball, and if you whack it back fast, and then they're going to whack it back fast, and before you know it, you're very fast. But what if, forget the rules of tennis. What if they whack you the ball and you pick it up or let it drop and say, yeah, I'll send that ball back in a little bit. Maybe you take some tea or something, and then you slowly send the ball back to them, right? Email is like that too. Conversations are like that. They have a speed. If somebody writes to you with urgency, or maybe especially if they write to you with intense emotions, you can acknowledge those emotions, but you can slow it down. So because this happens a lot, right? And first of all, if somebody is writing to you, by the way, with intense emotions via an email or text, you need to respond with a phone call, a video call, or face-to-face communication. Dealing with emotional things via text or email is highly ineffective, and I highly recommend you don't ever do it. But what you can do, right, to control the pacing and diffuse the emotions is respond saying, hey, I'd love to address those on a call. Can we find some time next week to talk about it? Right? Now I've controlled the pacing, right? This is their emergency, not mine. And so I've now slowed the timeline down. We're not going to email or communicate back and forth about this instantly. We're going to take a week before our next communication. But I've acknowledged them, right? So now their emotions aren't building up. Oh, now I'm not just upset about this thing, but I'm also upset about being ignored, right? So we don't have that. They're not ignored. And what can happen during that week? Well, I'm not worrying about their emergency. They're going to regulate their emotions. Now, maybe a week is too long, right? Consider your situation, but at least several days to let somebody who's feeling very emotional calm down, unless their emotions. But usually once we say we're going to address with it, you can give it a pretty long, you can slow that pacing way down. Let's say you're putting on some sort of an event, right? Maybe you made the event bigger than it needs to be. Maybe you have other people's programs or your own program of it has to be this and it has to be that and it has to be this. So whenever we're making things go faster or adding things to our plate, we always come back to the same kind of decision-making framework to slow down the pacing. What is the goal that I'm trying to achieve? Is there a simpler way to achieve that goal that takes less steps or less time, right? And then we and then we put in place the new plan. And you're going to realize so many things that you thought you needed to do, but you don't when you go back to that goal. So that's what I want you to be thinking about, right? If you are feeling like there's too much or things are going too fast, and especially if you're the CEO, but everybody can do this in their own lives, remind yourself, hey, I control the pace. I control the pace of my life. And I'm going to set the tone. I'm going to set the pace. I'm going to set how quickly we respond. Now, ignoring people is never good, right? Because you're affecting other people, but you can always tell people, I know you're waiting for me to make that decision, but I'm probably not going to be ready to make it until next week or the week after. Or I need to find out X, Y, and Z before I'm going to be ready. And I don't have time to gather that information right now. So I'm not going to forget about it, right? Acknowledging people can really go a long way in buying yourself that roadmap with other people, that runway, not roadmap, runway, right? You want to give some runway so that people aren't bubbling over, right? People bubble up. They don't like being ignored. We don't want to ignore other people. Just acknowledge them and just state very plainly, right? This is when this is going to happen. It's not going to happen now, right? And you don't need to put somebody else's emergency on your list if it's not an emergency for you or your organization. Once again, I'm Sarah Olivieri, and if you would like to be in the room with the other thrivers, slowing your pacing down, getting more stuff done without increasing your pacing, or whatever it is you would like to accomplish so that you can make a bigger impact with your nonprofit. Because you know what? I hear all the time, when you ask an executive director or nonprofit CEO, like, what's your biggest challenge? It's always something like, we need more money. I need my board is having issues. I've got team issues, or I don't have enough people or something. I have never once had a nonprofit CEO say to me, oh, achieving our mission, right? Curing solving hunger, eliminating hunger, curing cancer, right? Making sure that this preventable thing never happens, eliminating homelessness in a certain county or for a certain population. That's never the number one challenge when you ask them, and it doesn't need to be like this. So if you'd like that to be you, if you'd like your main challenge just to be achieving that really hard mission that you set out and have everything else in running your organization basically feel pretty manageable, then I'd love for you to consider joining the Thrive program. You can go to pivotground.com/application. Or if you just like to get tips in your email, go to pivotground.com/sign up. And I'll be happy to email you tips and updates and upcoming cool things that we're doing as well. And I will see you next week right here, wherever you're watching me. And you can always chat me, message me, stuff like that in the meantime.